correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience.
Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here with my friend Steve, and we have a very special guest on this week. But before that, how you doing, Steve?
Oh, not so bad. How about you?
Pretty good. Let's go ahead and talk about our podcast for the week. So our podcast for the week is actually Shared Sagas.
Yes, Shared Sagas. Wonderful little podcast here on the D20 Radio Network. And, well, it's our friend Tom and the rest of his Australian friends. And it's an actual play show.
They bill it as an Australian actual play podcast.
That's very accurate.
It is.
Yeah, and they play a lot of different stuff. Recently, they've done Trinity Continuum, Aberrant, and I believe they've launched into Descent into Avernus now. But they've done Star Wars, Shadowrun, all kinds of this, that, and everything else. So it's a mix of a lot of different stuff, and they're a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, check Shared Sagas out.
Yep.
Well, do you want to introduce our guest for this week?
I can do that. Our guest this week is Amber, and you may recognize her voice from Tabletop Babble or any one of a number of other podcasts that she's done. But we wanted to talk to her because she's talked kind of openly about dealing with GM anxiety, and for anyone who's ever run a game, that's a real thing. So, Amber, welcome to Me and Steve.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for being on.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come chat with us. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you'd like to take just a quick minute and tell us about some of the various things you do in TTRPGs. I know it's a lot, and you don't have to go through them all right now, but just so people kind of, if they haven't encountered you before, might know, what your background is.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So currently I am the graphic designer for Kobold Press, or one of the graphic designers, and I've been in this space for a while. I'm kind of a social anxiety, like as you guys it's more than just GM anxiety, but I also co-own the Geekspective podcast network, which Steve, you mentioned. I am the host of Tabletop Babble, as well as doing a few other shows. I'm on an actual play called Tales from Moxbury, and then I had my own show called Shapeshift, which specifically is about overcoming my GM anxiety. And then, of course, I just do freelance graphic design, and I'm on Twitter as @RocketOrca, and you can find all my stuff there.
Very, very cool. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, GM anxiety is something that pretty much everybody who runs games deals with to some extent or another.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I've met a GM ever who's been like, yeah, this was no problem. I went into a game, no nerves, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's, for me, and especially the more people that are playing that I haven't played with before, the worse it gets.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if we need to define it, right? Because we all kind of know what it is or how we feel it, but it's that, it's that jitters, that am I going to do a good enough job? Am I going to mess this up? All those things plus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of talk a little bit about like how I started RPGs and stuff, and like how I end up becoming a GM. Would that be something you want to hear about?
Sure. Sounds like as good a place to start as any.
Okay, cool. So this is like, I say way back, probably been like, oh gosh, how old am I? I don't know. I was in college. Well, forget about that age and years. Decades ago, I was always a creative person, liked drawing comics, telling stories and all that, but I kind of like refused to play RPGs because like in my head it was like, I'm a nerd, but I'm not that D&D nerd, which I think everybody kind of gets and understands a little bit. But I kind of told my friend who also co-owns Geekspective with me, he's the one who introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons, actually. I told him I would never play D&D, and he kind of like, I don't know how he exactly roped me into it. Maybe it was like, oh, you can draw your character, or it's just like a storytelling, and like you can make comics of the games if you want. Like, it's really fun. You basically get to make your own OCs. And I was like, all right, I'll try this. So I went from never playing D&D to playing a 7-year campaign in 3.5. And we had the situation in our gaming group where we really only had 2 GMs, and they were experiencing a lot of GM burnout. And over that course of time of 7 years, I was kind of also growing in role playing as well. I even started out role playing very like heavy anxiety. It's a whole performance thing, right? Like a spotlight shown on you, you have to say what you're going to do. Sometimes you're asked to describe something and you just don't want to sound, quote unquote stupid, or you don't want to as a player even do something that messes stuff up and it makes the group experience hardships, it's all your fault, right? So as a player, I was dealing with performance anxiety and social anxiety for a long time until I got into the Powered by the Apocalypse set of games. Are you guys familiar with the Powered by the Apocalypse world?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. So like Dungeon World was like my first foray into that, and then later on it was like Blades in the Dark, and then a bunch of other stuff. Apocalypse World, of course. And those systems really pushed me to be a better player, I felt like I over time just learned how to do that whole give and receive and like make up stuff on the fly. But yeah, like going back to me starting to GM, my friend Josh was like, I've been GMing for this group for like 8 years and I would like to be a player. And he's like, I think you can do it. And I went, I don't think so. I can't be in charge of people's entertainment for the night. Are you kidding me? That's too much pressure. And over time, it was like, he just kept being like, hey, I found this game that you might like to run, or hey, game you might like to run. Trying to find stuff more in my style. And eventually I was like, maybe if I made it like a way for me to like make it a project, because that's how my brain works. If I can make it a project, it is a different kind of fun for me. And I don't know why it's less personal, which is such a weird thing to think. But hey, if I make a project and start a podcast recording me GMing for the first time, I could do that. And so that's what I did, which is ridiculous in hindsight.
Well, I can say that's a little different path than I took to starting GMing, but I can tell you that even after having GM'd on and off for years, the first time we sat down to record something that was planned to air, I was a ball of nerves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as it turns out, that campaign fell apart, and there's still that recording of that episode somewhere, but
Yeah, I can look back, and also I was editing the podcast too, so it was like I had to listen to myself not only in audio format, but also like listen to my own GMing. It was a lot to handle, and I remember the first game that I ran, which I ran a game called Damn the Man by Hannah Schaefer, and I chose specifically people that have been playing with me for a long, long time and who were my very, very close friends. So it was like my partner, a close friend, Josh, and another close friend who all knew I was super anxious about GMing. And since they knew that, I felt comfortable and safe that they would like obviously not judge me and then also be really good players too. Like just, I knew how they played. And so it was very easy for me to like cater to their play styles. And even though I took that, right after the game, like I ran it for 4 hours, a one shot. I cried after. It was because it was just so much anxiety and tension in running that. And just remove the podcast part aside, just the running it was what made me cry.
mm-hmm. That's kind of a neat story, and like to what you were talking about, podcasting and editing. Actually, before we started the podcast, I do our editing, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing. So I'm like, well, how could I like get a test run? So we had been playing. Basically, it amounted to a broken up one shot online. I'm like, well, how about I just record this and then I'll go edit it for practice. And like you were saying, you're listening to yourself and it's like, oh my gosh, how much do I stall? How much do I and say stuff to Phil? Like this is God, I'm awful.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like, yeah, over time you start to hear your own vocal tics and your own, like how you slur words or you mash words together. And yeah, you start picking up on that stuff too, on top of like GM choices or like missing things. Like, yeah, if you're not recording a campaign, you can let plot holes slide. But when you're hearing the plot holes and they're just so obvious, or things that you missed or didn't pick up, or you could tell that this would have been better to do this. And yeah, it's a whole nother experience, I feel like, adding podcasting to the mix of GMing for the first time.
Oh gosh, I can't imagine that. I be honest, for me, starting GMing was, and this was back when I was in college, but this was, well, in the late '90s, and I wanted to play Rifts, and I had a couple of friends who had the books, but no one wanted to run it. Now I understand why, but I wanted to play Rifts, so I'm like, well, if no one else will, then I guess I will. I barely knew how to play, much less run a game, but I ended up ran a sort of a campaign that lasted 2.5 years, I guess. So people seem to have fun.
That's another thing too, is like the whole like I still haven't run D&D because I am intimidated by the rule system, and I know that logically my brain says no one's going to like no one I'm going to play with or who I would run a game for is going to be upset if I forgot a rule or rules lawyer me or anything when we play a game. But D&D felt like a very intimidating system to start running for the first time in, just because like for my brain too, I have ADHD as well. And it was like I don't think I could keep track of everything. I felt like I would be there would be a different kind of anxiety on top of the social anxiety of like I just can't keep track of everything. So when I first started running games, I was choosing stuff that was more rules light and that there was not a lot for me to keep track of, because I figured I really needed the help with just the whole navigating the conversation kind of side of the role play and like table management of people versus organizing information. I was like, I'll tackle that later. The struggle I'm having the most right now is just being on the spotlight in a different way. Like I'm the conductor of this show. And so I think like the first couple games I ran, like I basically ran just one shots to begin with. There were just all sorts of random things, just things that I was interested in, and then people that I was friends with would have fun playing with me. And there were things like I said, Damn the Man was one. I think there was like Honey Heist, which is a Grant Howitt one-page game based on lasers and feelings. I ran Monster Hearts 2, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. I think there was like a couple other role-playing games, even some two-player role-playing games. And I also was trying to do it in a way where I was also picking games that helped me like diversify GM skills. So I would pick stuff that was very role play focused. So those two-player games where it's like, how do you do character stuff really well? But I also picked games that were for like world building. So I think I also ran like The Quiet Year. I can't remember the other stuff. It's been a while. It's been more than 2 days ago. So I can't remember everything, but I was trying to do that kind of stuff, trying to build up to D&D, which yet I still haven't done yet. I'm not as anxious to run it anymore, but I just haven't found the time to do it.
Well, I think, to me that sounds like, I'll be honest, I think I've only ever run 1 or 2 sessions of D&D.
Oh yeah.
I've run Delta Green, Rifts, Cyberpunk. Fantasy isn't my go-to setting, genre, whatever, in the first place, but it's there as a touchstone, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And and I think there is some intimidation factor there. If you're running a system that the people you're playing with know well, that can be both a good thing for your nerves and a bad one, right? Because sometimes running that game that everyone knows means they're gonna, and in your head anyway, they're gonna know every time you miss something.
Yes. So in our game group in Geekspective, prior to the show, prior to the pre-show show, I was talking with the Steves. I was talking about some of my game group, and one of the Johns, not my brother, the father John, his son ended up playing with us, and his name's Chris. And Chris is very dear to me. He is like a little brother that I never had, and he was quite younger. He's like I want to say 15 years younger than me. Like I started playing with him when he was 9 years old because his dad's a major RPG person, and I kind of like grew up side with him in his RPG experience. But he was the kind of kid who just read the books for fun, and I don't have that kind of attention span. I engage with the books when I need something from them. I just don't plop down and like, yes, I'm going to read the entire monster manual now and commit all of these monsters to memory, which is what Chris did. And so I was always worried that I'm going to run a game for him and he's going to like, mentally be like, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about or she doesn't know what she's doing. And of course, that's not what it was actually like. That's just what you build up in your own head, right?
Oh, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's to this day. That's why. Well, one of the reasons I won't run Forgotten Realms anything, because I don't. It's not my thing. I don't want to spend that much time learning that much lore to nitpick over stuff with people. If I'm going to run a game in Star Wars or whatever, I'll say, look, this is my Star Wars universe. I'm more or less going to follow the established stuff from these movies, and that's more or less, and beyond that, it's mine. I don't care what somebody else wrote down. And I'll tell people that at the outset, but that's not easy to do when you're new.
No, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to spend, like a long time up front having to digest a ton of lore that like I'm not really 100% interested in, which I think is a lot of the GM advice I got along the way too, as I was reading more things like blogs where people would put their things up on YouTube or people who I would interview even, where it's like you shouldn't force yourself to run something that you're not engaged with. That's just going to make your anxiety even worse and you're not going to have fun. And as a GM, you should be having fun too. It's the whole table should be having fun, and that includes you, the GM. So that's kind of where I went after all the one shots. I had never run a campaign before of anything, and I was too intimidated by D&D for the reasons I already stated. And I also wasn't interested in necessarily that world either. So I kind of was trying to find something that really like engaged me, like something I would like the excitement of the system or the excitement of the world outweighed the social anxiety. Like I'm gonna have so much fun playing this, just engaging with it. It's the other emotions are gonna take a back seat. And I can't remember which Gen Con it was. I want to say maybe 2017 or 2018 that my partner we were walking around the exhibit hall, and I think he stopped by the Indie Press Revolution booth and he saw something that caught his eye. He was like, "Oh God, Amber's gonna love this," and it was a game called Ryutama, which is a Japanese RPG that was I can't remember who localized it or translated it for United States, but it was travel focused and it was exploration focused and all of the art was very like manga like and Studio Ghibli like Totoro or Princess Mononoke, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think I found my game." And I read it and I love the system as well. It was really simple to understand. The rules were laid out really well and the world was pretty open-ended. But it was very wholesome and very cute. And I went, "Oh my god, this is the game I want to run." And so that I actually started my first campaign. Like the first campaign, the only campaign I've ever run is captured in audio format on Shapeshift. And I had so much fun running that game. And I had players that were so into the system and so into the world and like the lore and stuff that it just I didn't have any I had barely any nerves going into running that campaign.
That's cool. That's I've one of the advice things I've said on the show and otherwise is if you're looking to run a game for the first time, and this is I guess just a way to help you keep the nerves down. Find a game where the setting is something your brain works in well. Where you just get ideas for that kind of setting. For me, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic kind of near modern settings, that's just where my brain works. And so that's what I tend to go to is what I want to run because it's easier for me to deal with all the curveballs that inevitably happen, which is
Right.
yeah, it's just a way of, so to speak, minimizing the anxiety.
Right, because it's like a familiar space. You know the tropes, that genre real.
I was going to say, for me, when I was younger and running games, like when I first started, I found that I'd made a coping mechanism for myself to get around the anxiety. And the way I got around setting anxiety was I just made my own settings, but that's because when I was a kid, I was a creative writing nerd. And so I did that anyways.
Yeah, I think that if because I used to just draw tons of stuff, right? Like I would draw all my little me and my brother both would draw like our fan characters in like Mega Man, or we would draw our fan characters for Final Fantasy or Digimon or Pokemon. And so we would spend a lot of time making up stories and making like little comics with each other. And so jumping into D&D, it was like, or jumping into role playing games. I say D&D like it's the like Kleenex. Jumping into TTRPGs, once I got over and found the area where I could be that kind of, like, creative, like, what I was used to with my brother, and also have my brother play in my first campaign ever too, was a huge deal for me because it was something comforting and familiar, and I knew how to create in that world, like, that sandbox that they had created.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's another thing that can help you get over anxiety is, and sometimes it's not always possible. I understand that. But if you have a friend that you can bring with you and be like, hey, I know you, you can be my anchor point, that can help you get over some anxiety. Because that was definitely a big thing for me when I started running D&D specifically. I didn't know any of the people really that I was running it for. I knew my buddy Aaron and my one friend Matt, and that was it. And so those two were the two sounding boards that I had where I would say something and be like nervous how the party would react. And I'd look at them and then know that, yeah, okay, we're moving on. We're doing good now.
So, have you either of you like run a game for like conventions or like complete strangers?
First time's coming up here soon.
First convention time's coming up. I've run some online games with what were at the time were complete strangers, which was really a trip because it was the first time I'd ever run anything online.
I
Or no,
I
second.
I find it so like people who can run games at conventions with like complete strangers, I think they're very powerful to me. I get so worried about if people are having fun or not, and some people
Mhm.
don't emote the way that you think they like show that they're having fun, and I'm always so nervous to get a group of people that are just like deadpan, don't want to engage, are not having fun, and that's, like, my biggest fear.
Yeah, that was my fear going into playing online with random people because I got invited to a game and I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of know you. I don't really know you. I mean, I know you from maybe having a handful of conversations, but yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
It's whew.
Yeah.
I finally did it. I finally tried to run. I never do anything simply either. Like, I feel like I'm the kind of person that, like, I feel like I have to do everything on hard mode. I don't know why my brain's wired like this because I think I like puzzles and I like challenges. So, I like to challenge myself, which is probably why I've done everything I've done so far in my life. But I did run a it wasn't even a pre-generated thing. I basically decided I was going to run for the first time at conventions at a catacon in Ohio. I was like, I'm going to run my playtest module that I wrote myself to see to get feedback, and then also two to see if I can run a game for strangers. And I did it, and it went really really well. But it was also a module I had run a few other times, like play tested with some friends. So I knew the game pretty well, and Ryutama specifically. And I was super happy that I did it because it actually turned out really well. Because a Catacon is a nice small convention, and a lot of people who go to it, I believe, are like game designers.
Mhm.
So I think I had tables of like at least 2 to 3 game designers or GMs so that they could have empathy for me running this for the first time.
Yeah, I'm at the stage where I'm trying to figure out we have a local con coming up in October, and I'm trying to figure out what I wanna run, and I'm, like, bouncing back and forth. Do I wanna run, like, do I wanna run, say, Delta Green, which I'm very familiar with, but it is kind of it's a more serious tone game, or do I wanna run something like Grant Howitt's Chaos Brigade,
Mm.
which I don't know, but looks like it would be an absolute riot to run at a con because who really cares what the rules are? We're just having fun and causing chaos.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess in a way that's a form of GM anxiety in itself. Is well, what game do I want to pick?
Right. Gosh, yeah, I think for me at least, it's always the one that I feel the most. I mean, it really depends, right? Like if I'm playing with a bunch of strangers, I think I would always want to pick stuff that I am comfortable with. Like for instance, one of my favorite games to run is it's called The Warren. It's where all the PCs play as rabbits, and it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and it's one of my favorites to run. And it's just I just know it so well. Like I can visualize a forest really, really easily. I can think of tons of obstacles that's, really easy for you to make up on the fly. I mean, a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games are very improv heavy, and I feel like that would be something I would just pull to run at any I could just pick it up and I could just run it. For new stuff that I would be worried about, not knowing very well, like, I don't think I could run a Delta Green game, with strangers because I've played it, and I know the system, but, I'm not very strong in that knowledge of that trope and that genre.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like I said, it's just one of those. It's like, well, what do I want to go more lighthearted because I'm going to be nervous and everybody laughing is one of those things that kind of calms me down, or do I want to go with the game that I know how to run, I know what I'm going for, I just got to hope that I have players that buy into it.
And I think that's one of the things that I kinda wanna talk to players. I think because I was a player for so long, you kind of if you're an empathetic person, if you love RPGs and you love role playing anyway, I think if you're a good player, you're gonna end up becoming a good GM just because good players I feel like we can pick up what the GM's laying down, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And we are aware enough to be like, "We're all in this together, we're supposed to be telling a story together." So, like, if the GM is presenting something, it'd be kind of a, in my mind, I don't I wanna say dick move.
Fair.
Yeah, it's kind of a dick move to be like, "Nah, I'm not gonna even engage with this at all. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna do X instead, and I'm totally not gonna engage with this thing that you're putting down." I would hope that most people playing at a convention again, I don't have that much convention experience either because I kinda shied away even from playing games at conventions because I was always nervous. I mean, there's a whole other side to this too, right? Like, I haven't even talked about yet is being femme presenting or female in the space where it's like very nerve wracking. And I've experienced it firsthand where you don't get taken seriously at the table. So I had that going in as a player even a long time ago. I had a few bad experiences with players talking over me or just not taking me seriously at the table. And that kind of like really kind of deflates you to that experience. And so I very much shut down and I was like, I'm never playing with strangers because I had a couple of bad experiences with some bad people, bad players. I don't want to ever have to go through that again. And so it took me a long time to even be comfortable, even with playing with strangers. So I'm rambling right now. Please save me, Steves.
You're fine. I appreciate because we really don't have, obviously we're two white guys. We don't have the understanding of that perspective. So it was,
Yeah, I don't usually talk about it because it's like it's difficult. It's not really it's personal, right? So it's like it's hard to
right,
talk
right.
about, but I think it's important to talk about. And I some of my experiences were not as bad as what I've seen from other people. And I mean, that's a it keeps really good creative people from doing stuff if you have those kinds of experiences at a table as a GM or as a player to have people talk over you, not take you seriously, say either sexist or borderline outright racist stuff around you. And it's like, that's kind of what my experience was. But thankfully, I did have a good group of people in my life that kept me wanting to engage with RPGs. And then I eventually grew to have the confidence to run. Like if I didn't have that support from my core group, I don't think I would have kept playing RPGs.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I think as players, everybody, you need to pay attention to that, right? Remember that everyone else around the table is a person, and
Yeah.
I've said it. I don't know how many times. This hobby is about having fun together.
Yeah,
Together being the key part of that phrase.
and the more people we can bring into the hobby, the more fun we can all have together. Like, that's the thing I never understood about that mentality was like, I have friends that have had stories much like yours, where it's like, I played with a random group of people and they were absolutely horrible to me, and I'll never play with randoms again. And it's like, why? Why were they, what would possess, I get
I
I get upset. I get upset because it's like, what would possess somebody to be like that? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, 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 I think well, I have lots of thoughts. I don't know if they're, can be coherent right now. They're just sad, right? It's like, gaming when it first start or, like, RPGs when it first started. I mean, it's a very small subset of people in society who started engaging with RPGs, right? But as it's grown, unfortunately, like, whatever that group started with, whatever those behaviors were okay in that space and of that time, right? Like, how many years I don't know. I don't like talking about years.
Yeah.
I don't know how time works anymore, so I can't remember when D&D was created or just gaming like this in general. But, like, yeah, it's unfortunately some lingering I mean, every group, honestly. I actually remember this on Twitter where it's like my friend, made a post about, like, I think every group, every hobby has a subset of people who are going to be whatever ism and whatever ist you wanna put or phobic, and I was like, "Yeah, I can attest. I've been in knitting communities where you find awful people." So it's yeah, I think you're just gonna find that.
Yeah, it's just a shame.
It is. But the more we talk about, the more we stand up to that kind of stuff, they become the minority and it's yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes me happy to hear it. Well, happy to see in the community is that more people are speaking out. More people are coming out and saying, "No, no, this is not how we all want to be." And I'm in that group of like, "No, get back in your corner. Stay away from me. Like, I don't want to be associated with you." You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
We're here God, we wanna have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to bring up sore wounds or anything, but
No, you're good, you're good.
So, I guess now is as good a time to throw this in as any because we feel like we've followed that trail as far as we want to. One of the things we do is we take some question suggestions from some of our Patreon supporters.
Oh, cool.
And one of the ones we got was, and this has kind of been the elephant in the room as far as GM anxiety for a lot of people, I'm sure, is how they deal with, as our listener put it, the GM porn of people like Matt Mercer and Brandon Lee Mulligan.
Like, being compared to them?
Yes.
I think
Oh
they're,
my gosh.
yeah, like talking about like being compared to and probably the
Yeah.
expectations that they set and all that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think it's like Steve said, it's the expectations. And maybe, in a convention setting, maybe you're even more apt to run into this, right? Because maybe you're playing with someone new and their only knowledge of role playing is having watched Critical Role or Dimension 20. And so they just think that that's, you know, the way they are. Every GM is supposed to be like this, right?
Oh, it's so funny. I've never ever thought about this or come across this because I'm so far removed from that kind of actual play level. Like, I personally, this is an Amber tangent sidebar. Like, the actual plays that I enjoy listening to are not the production ones, like the heavily produced, like this is a show. I really like the ones where I get to hear people just being friends with each other, and I love table talk, like, a lot, and I'm usually more invested in the people at the table than necessarily the game being played. One of them being my favorite is, Spout Lore. They're a Dungeon World podcast that they're a really great group of friends, and, like, you can hear their friendship, right, through it, and they don't all do voices. Only 2 of them do voices, the GM, but they're also the 2 that do the voices or do heavy improv are improv comedians, and they acknowledge that as well, like we're that's is our job, but the other 2 players aren't, or at least one of them I think might be, but one of them was a person with player anxiety as well, so it was interesting to watch, but I love that kinda stuff, but as far as, like, the worry or concern about being compared to Matthew Mercer, like, I've never thought about that. That's such a weird thing for me to think about because I'm not Matthew Mercer. And if people come to my table and are like, I want Matthew Mercer, I'm sorry, I'm Amber Seeger and I am not Matthew Mercer. And I'm also not in the studio and I'm also not a voice actor. The best you're going to get out of me is maybe a sad Minnesotan accent. Like, that's all I can do. Or for Dimension 20 or whatever the Brendan Lee Mulligan show is, like, they have a whole production team making the props, and the people that they have on the show are also actors and comedians professionally. You can't do that.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you completely. You know, and I've said it before on the show. I think the thing that people forget about Critical Role specifically, and I've honestly never watched Dimension 20, so I wouldn't know Brandon Lee Mulligan if he walked in the door and handed me a D20. But you know, the thing about Critical Role that people forget is the whole table are actors.
Yeah,
So it's not just, and I think Matt is a great GM, but
sure.
when you have other actors that you're playing with, they know how to give you stuff to play off of as well. Plus, they've been friends for years, so they know how to, they know each other's
Yes.
tendencies. They know to go, it's, how do I want to say this? I've had people, Steve and I both know someone who used to refer to Critical Role as like the D&D version of a porno. And I don't think that's accurate, but I think, let me untangle myself and say what I mean here.
Sure. You're good.
It's that is a great example of what a role-playing game can be. It is in no way an example of what every role-playing game should be.
Yes. I think this is my real advice to the question. I think, if you're concerned, if you are a GM and you're concerned that someone is going to come to your table thinking that they're going to get a Critical Role experience, I would just have that conversation up front. Like, if it was my friend group and we're getting stuff together, like, we're going to do a campaign, it's going to be our first time doing it, I'm the chosen one, I'm the GM, I think I would have that conversation and says, look, if you're expecting Matthew Mercer level of GMing, then you're not going to get that here, right? Like, I think a lot of headaches and like emotional frustration or turmoil can usually be talked about up front. Like, it comes from usually like miscommunication or unsaid expectations, and then those expectations not being met, right? Like, that's where a lot of like frustration comes from in my experience. So I would be having that conversation at the beginning. This is what our campaign is going to be like. This is how I can't do voices. I don't want to do voices. If you guys want to do voices, please go ahead do voices, but I'm not going to do that. And also, I'm not an actor and I might be slow to improv because I've never done it before or I'm not good at it. This is kind of how I see how I'm going to handle GMing. I think that's kind of what I would say for advice in like set those expectations early on. I'm not Matthew Mercer. If that's and you know that somebody is excited because they love D&D because of Critical Role, I think you should say that right at the beginning.
No, I think that's good advice. So we got one other one if we want to do that now, and then we can get into whatever we get into.
Sure.
But this listener, I get the feeling, based on conversations I've had with them, that one of their anxiety points is, what do I do when, the players make just a left turn out of nowhere and they went that way and the plan that they had was this way? And like they're saying, yeah, you can move the goalpost, but like, how do you, how do you deal with that fear of being caught off guard?
I feel that 100%. Like, when I first started GMing, I was very much trying to plan for every branch of contingency. But as I'm sure we all know here, that you can't plan for some people decision making or what they're going to do at any given moment, or if they want to bite that, whatever plot hook you put out in front of them. I have two thoughts on this. One comes from just experience, which means you'll get better at those random choices and out of left field decisions the more they come at you and the more you just run games. You'll get better at handling that. And one of the best tips I ever got before I started GMing was from my friend Lily, who told me, because that was exactly the same thing. I was like, what if my players do something I'm not expecting? And she said to me, just know your world. Just know how, like, what's in your world, kind of vaguely know your tropes, know, like, as long as you know how, if somebody pushes, you know what the pull is going to be, and like, just, and we're talking broad, right? I'm not talking like granular detail. But if you know enough and you do it enough and you have that practice enough, you'll get better with it over time. So that's my first thought. Just practice encountering it, not being afraid to encounter it, which I'll talk about that in the second second part, and then just knowing your world really well. So that way you can react as the world. The second part to help get over that fear is being okay with stopping the game. Like, you have the power to be like, hey, you guys did something I didn't expect. I need a minute. Maybe now's a good time for a snack break, and maybe or a bathroom break, so I can figure it out. I think this kind of goes back to like the whole like Critical Role Matthew Mercer like comparison thing too. It's like, I think people feel, and GMs, with anxiety, feel like you have to keep the show going in order to make it feel fun and engaging and whatever we built up in our heads. But like, you can stop stuff, and you can say, and you can be, it's okay to be like, I don't know. You guys did something bananas. I gotta figure out. So let's go take a step away. And here's another thing too. Like we talked about, like, this is a shared experience. I've noticed from playing D&D 3.5 for like 7 years and having a certain GM style presented to me all the time, where there's like there's like the DM screen, right? Like there's secrets going on behind all the time, and that, I've had GMs that always hold things really close to their chests because they want to surprise us, or there's something cool happening, or they want to, I don't know, surprise round, whatever it is that they want to keep close and not share with the group because they think it's going to, I don't know, make less of an impact. But like, we're sharing a table, so I think it's okay to show your hand as a GM every once in a while. I've had many times in my campaigns where I've set up a city that, here's a good example, a real story. I made a city in my Ryutama campaign, the second one I was starting to do. I set up a city that had this issue going on where the townspeople were so obsessed with winning like fantasy Oscars and having their theater troupe win something, they didn't realize that their town was being taken over by these horrible cockroaches. They just weren't cleaning up after themselves, and they weren't taking care of anything. But my players, when I presented it with them, when they finally realized what was going on, I got a huge X. No, I don't want to engage with nasty, gross cockroaches. And I went, well, there goes my whole scenario. So how about tell me, tell me how your players are reacting, what's going through your thoughts, like, maybe we should just end the session right now so I can figure out maybe what we should do next. You guys, I have ideas what you want to do next, but what should we do next? Because I had nothing, and I told them I had nothing. And there's no shame in that. You shouldn't be ashamed to not be prepared and to stop and just have that conversation. Because a lot of times my ideas for game stuff come straight from my players anyway. So why not just ask them in advance?
No, that's completely fair. Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that I constantly try to remind myself, and I tell people this all the time, is I think most of us as GMs are by far our own worst critic.
Yes.
And in that, one of the things is we're the only ones who knew what we meant to do.
Right.
Everybody else just sees what happens and went, oh, heck, we had fun. They don't know what you were trying for. They just know what happened and whether or not they liked it.
Yes.
To this day, one of the most fun sessions I have ever run ended in what was basically a TPK without any NPCs involved.
Okay, explain.
So I've told the whole story. I did it way back in an old episode. It's called The Night That Bubba Went Crazy. This was my Riffs game. So to make a long story really short, I was introducing a new character. Well, this was a new PC character, was a pixie. One of the other characters had a phobia about aliens.
Oh.
So Pixie starts presenting in this little flitting ball of light, like Tron. Player playing the one with the phobia decides this triggers him. So then they just start going back and forth, and they're like in a grocery store because, why use a tavern when they have to go buy groceries, right?
Right.
So they start shooting up the grocery store, on and on and on. Eventually, I think one of the first characters to die was this character called the Twinkie Avenger, who was completely crazy in the first place. But at which point the player promptly, as soon as he died, went, okay, looked at the character who was having the insanities issue or the phobias issue and went, all right, I'm now playing the voices in your head. And so just through this whole thing, they end up killing each other off. And yet at the end of the session, it was like I look around and, huge smiles on everybody's faces, the whole 9 yards. And it's like, how, you know, what do you do?
Well, we fade to black and we roll credits and we'll figure out what happens next session. But yeah, I love that because it's like, I mean, that perfectly kind of shines light on also a thing that I've told other people too, where it's like I've tried so hard to get outside of my own head and just focus on my players and like just if you can get out of your own head and just pay attention to what they're excited about and what they're engaging with and ask them questions, they will do the work for you. Like,
Mhm.
I just have to be able to be like, describe it better, or if an NPC in town, does something, or it affects them, I can react as the NPC. But a lot of times, your players, if you have really good players who want to engage, know how to share a table, are respectful, and also just they will do it for you. So I try very, very hard to, it's a whole process. I've gotten better at it. I've been GMing for 3 years now, or 4 years, or 5, or maybe 200. I don't know. It's you get to the point where it gets easier. The more you do it, unfortunately, yes, you have to do the thing to get better at the thing and overcome things. The more you do it, it just gets easier over time. And I've found it. I find that I can go in now with so little prep. My prep now is just going. Remember to ask questions. Remember your tropes. Remember, to look at the players. You're gonna do great. This is my mirror prep talk. You got this, kid. You gotta do great. You know all of this stuff already. Just remember your players. And I tend to go into. I mean, you're never gonna 100% get over those nerves. I don't think, but it gets easier to get into it. I believe.
But yeah, well, my one sentence GM advice is plan in bullet points, be ready to put them in a different gun.
Mhm.
I mean, because that's I think I know for me, at least again, and this may just be how my brain works. If I plan out fine details, that's where I get really flustered if things don't go the way I expected them to.
Oh, those are the first thing to go out the window. For me, I can't do. I'm really bad about doing like I'll do all these fine details and then I just immediately throw them out the window because I'm like, well, I'll try doing something and my players will go a different direction. I'll be like, okay, bye. And I don't know. I have a really weird GMing style because a lot of my GMing is improvisational because that's what was fun with my friends back in the day. And so
Yeah,
that's how I've learned how to run.
sure. I think there's no one right way, right? Like, I think you have to find what works for you. For me, what works really well is I like writing dialogue a lot. And so for me, and I love playing as NPCs. So for me, what I end up doing is I tend to generate some NPCs, make a couple of character like personality types, just kind of put like, angry or tense or easygoing, too chill. I'll do that. I'll tag characters like that, but then I tend to just like writing dialogue. So a lot of my prep for me is just writing in character voice for NPCs, and that's what I do for prep a lot of the time now, especially for games like that are very improv heavy, like the Warren. And then I just bullet point list potential obstacle, right? Like if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to, okay, we're going to do a session, and they could potentially come across a hawk or a ferret or a hedgehog, or, I just list out a bunch of stuff, and then I can just, and I'm already in my head writing dialogue for all of these these NPCs. It just makes that's how I do it. I don't even worry about like roles. And another thing I do is I always write down questions, like what kind of questions I could ask characters. And that's another way I do prep. So I don't even write out like, a scenario perhaps. It's just like what questions can I ask? What can I potentially put in? And then a bunch of dialogue for NPCs that I don't necessarily memorize or, have in front of me. It's just good for me to get into the mindset of the game.
Right. It helps you get a voice for that NPC and get an idea of what you want to get across with them. I do that for myself sometimes, as much as I say I'm improvisational, I do that same exact thing where I'll just sit and be like, how do I want this NPC to be? And I might just give them like one or two words as far as like grumpy or short tempered or, really overly polite or just out of time. That's one of my favorite ones to write down, is just out of time. Because when you're talking to an NPC, sometimes players want to talk and talk and talk and talk. And sometimes you just want to be like, okay, that's cool. I get you want to talk to them for a long time. But what if they're like constantly looking at their watch and being like, hey man, I can't, I gotta go. I got life to live away from you.
Well, and that's another thing too I love doing. It's like knowing your table, or like, I mean, there's different things, right? Like we've talked about GMing at conventions and stuff. I when I talk about like catering to your table, I'm assuming that this is coming from a like you've got a group together and you know your players. If you have players that love NPCs and that's really what they want to do a lot of the time, like I think that's a good idea. If you like, I don't want this NPC was nothing, I just gotta go. And you have players who want to hang on, that's a great thing to do. But I also like to cater to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I either make NPCs that I know they're gonna love, or I make NPCs I know they're gonna hate, because that's another great motivating factor. And sometimes I make characters I think that they're gonna love that they end up hating, and so then I double down on that character. Or sometimes I have an NPC that I just like randomly make a voice to try it out, and then they laugh, and then all they want to know is about that NPC who's just a guard who was supposed to hand them a map to the town. And now the whole freaking arc of this session is going to be about this guard. And that's fun for me too. Like I think like learning how to delight players has become a lot of fun for me, or even just, irritating them is also kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that has pulled me out of a lot of my anxiety, because like going back, I think a lot of where my social anxiety comes from is from, just childhood, being bullied or being made fun of, or like having parents that teased a lot, or just in general being nervous around big groups of people, or being judged. I came from a religious background. Oh boy, the judgmental side of stuff I got was awful. And so I think that's where my anxiety came from. But there's always a part of me that I loved entertaining, but I just didn't know how to do it very well because I was always nervous. One of the stories I love telling people is like when I was in, I don't know, second grade, I love making people laugh. We had just read The Princess and the Pea, and divine intervention. We had peas served for lunch that day. And I said, oh my God, this is comedy gold. I can start sitting on these peas and making kids laugh. So I started doing that, and I got in trouble for it, but I made tons of kids laugh as I was smashing peas with my like 9-year-old butt. And so I found that in RPGs. And because I found that in RPGs, and nobody I've encountered thus far has judged me for doing the metaphorical sitting on peas as a 9-year-old with RPGs, I don't feel judged with it. I'm having so much fun with it. And that has really helped me get over the like anxiety, knowing that I have a group of people who can't wait for me to like show them some ridiculous NPC that I've made up. Like that's so important. That helped me out a lot. And so two players listening to this, or potential GMs, like players, it's so important to, after game sessions, thank your GM and like tell them like things that you liked, because you may not realize it, but they might be nervous like me. And I had people who just were so happy to tell me how much they loved or how much they enjoyed after every session. And that was super important to me.
Yeah. On the last bit there, yeah, 100%. That's, thing to, give your GMs feedback, because sometimes it's exactly what we need to hear And as far as, you talking about getting that rush from entertaining people, I know exactly what you're talking about, because that's the thing. Like, is I'm watching the table if I'm running a game, it's getting that reaction, be it either that where you can tell they're really enjoying it, or like you can tell that this character is getting under their skin, but in like the engaging kind of way, not
Yes.
like, oh, I'm tired of this, I want them to go away. More like the, oh, I can't wait for this guy to get off screen.
Yeah.
Yes. I love those characters. I love being those characters too.
Well, Steve, do we have any more questions from patrons?
No, that's all we've got, actually. We didn't, for as much of a topic as everyone deals with, we didn't get a whole lot of specific questions. So
Well,
That's okay.
it's okay.
So I think at this point we're going to go ahead and start moving into Game of the Week. But before we do that, where would you like to be found? Go ahead and promote yourself on where you'd like to be found, and Twitter, Facebook, any of that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So you can find everything basically on my Twitter at Rocket Orca. That is like the spaceship killer whale. I've had that for a while now and I can't get rid of it. I also have a website of the same name. So www.rocketorca.com. That's my portfolio website and everything that I do. And then, of course, geekspective.com, which has all the podcasts, Tabletop Babble, also has a Twitter as well. We're getting back into the swing of things after a bit of a life hiatus. Priorities had shifted, but I'm getting back into interviewing again. And so, yeah, if you also want to talk to me on my podcast, you can email me at tabletopbabble@gmail.com.
There you go.
there you go. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I love the Adorablins.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh.
And you have the coffee goblin, the coffee Adorablin, and I love it so much.
Oh my gosh. So thank you for bringing that up. Adorablins is very dear to me. This is the first game I've illustrated for, like fully a game. I've done a couple of other things here and there, but Adorablins is a dream come true.
Well, let's go ahead and move into Game of the Week. And
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
Would you like one of us to go first, and then you can kind of get a feel for it?
Yes. Yes, please. This would be good.
Okay. So you or me, Steve?
I have one.
Okay. Well, then I'll let you go.
I have one that I don't want to make any bold statements, but I feel like it might be good for younger children,
Okay.
or really anybody, honestly. The game's called Teddy. It's Teddy, like teddy bear. It's from Cat Simmons Smith. It was just released on the 15th of April.
Okay.
It's described as a friendly game where you can fight monsters under the bed or go exploring hidden wonders of a monstrous land in the dark wardrobe. So it has very kid-friendly vibes. It feels like it's very much aimed towards a younger audience, but I looked at it and I was like, for whatever reason, this grabbed me and feels like a game that I could run for like even just a group of my friends and being like, let's just be goofballs for an evening and not have like any heavy themes and just play a goofy monster game, like where the wild things are, that type of thing.
Yeah. No, this does. Yeah. Like you said, it does. It has a very like kid friendly vibe, or it could just be like you said, that evening where you want to act like little kids again.
Yeah, you just want to play pretend with your friends and you don't want to have to think too much.
Where can you find this game?
It is on drive-through here. Keep an eye out in the guest green room. I will
Okay.
throw a link.
Sure.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I don't know. That's where we found it. It might even be on itch.
Yeah, it could be anywhere, but drive-through is my main go-to and it's pay what you want. So that's another good bonus. You can pay as you see appropriate. I think they recommend $4.99. So
Oh,
that
cute.
looks like could be some good fun entertainment at the least.
yeah, good clean fun.
Mm-hmm.
Something we don't often deal with around here, considering I think probably by the time this episode releases, my episode I recommended Cyborg. So
Yeah.
the last game I recommended was Cyborg. So this is sort of on the exact opposite spectrum of that.
Fair.
But yeah, that's my game of the week.
All right. So, would you like to go yet, or would you like me to go ahead and go, Amber?
I can go. So I think I was looking through my emails trying to find games that I've saved or bought to myself because I, in a great fashion, sorry, forgot about this segment. So I hadn't picked anything, which is fine because I have lots of games in collections everywhere.
Don't we all?
So
Yep.
yes, I have too many games. I have so many games I want to play. I have so many games I want to run. So I really continuing on with the feel good thing. There is a game that I have found on itch a while ago that I was completely drawn into by the art. I'm going to drop it into chat as well. It is called Crescent Moon, I believe. Yes, Crescent Moon. And I'm trying to find who made this because there's a lot on this itch page right now.
Pocket Compass.
Pocket Compass, yes. So the tagline is called A Downloadable Daydream, and it's like go on a strange journey into the patchwork world of the Daydream and Crescent Moon, a feelings delving role playing game of brave children and bold adventure. The artwork is very whimsical and very childlike, and I just love the idea of playing in a daydream. I love cute stuff. You talked about Adorablins, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse card game that I illustrated for, and we were going for like kid-like whimsy and wonder. And I think that's kind of where I'm at in my like game experience right now. Like I used to do a lot of Death Trap dungeons and like hardcore gaming for a long time. That's kind of where I cut my teeth in role-playing games. And now I'm kind of moving into the like, I don't know, it's been a hard last 3 years. So I've been playing a lot of like lighter stuff, and this really caught my eye.
Yeah, this looks
Cool.
really
Yeah.
nice.
Like hand-drawn inventory, yes, I will draw everything that's in my little backpack. Non-violent play, interesting. I like that kind of like even in the games I run now, like my Ryutama campaign, I try to present like you have options. It doesn't necessarily mean you always have to bonk the monster. Maybe the monster needs help. And so I kind of like that kind of stuff too. I love this. It looks really good.
Yeah, you know what? You could almost do this as like an interlude in a game you're already playing too, I think.
Yeah, I love playing games inside of games. Gameception.
Daydreaming as, Bob the Orc or whatever.
That's actually a really good idea too for like those times where your players throw you into left field. All right, you guys, we're gonna go on a daydream adventure right now. Your characters are sleeping.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that does look interesting.
And of course, being
Cool.
a graphic designer, like the layout really speaks to me a lot. I think it's really beautifully designed. I think I own it, but I don't know where I have it.
I feel that. I feel that.
One of those moments where you're scrolling through your library and you're like, when did I get that?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of that. Like one time I was like, "Oh, I own this? I didn't know when did I buy Iron Sworn?" Okay, great, never mind.
Yeah, that happened to me a couple months or month ago or so. I was actually scrolling through my drive-through library. And I'm like, I just listened to an actual play of this. I don't remember ever downloading this game. Okay.
I
All
was
right.
I was looking like literally Friday and going, I need to buy a new hard drive because I am at almost 1 terabyte full of games.
Holy moly, I'm not that level. But
Yeah.
I can see in years' times, I could be there.
All right. Well, I've got one that's perhaps a little less cute than the ones you guys have described, but I'm going to start off with the kind of the description first before I give you the title. So, Bryson Foods Inc. has taken everything from us. We are chickens. We are eldritch horrors. Make Bryson pay. One day a portal opened to the other, an undescribable dimension of horror. Each of us began manifesting the traits of distant cosmic entities. So this is describing a game actually inspired by Grant Howitt's Honey Heist. The title of this game is Something is Wrong with the Chickens.
That's a great title. I like that.
It
I like
is
that a
a
lot.
one-page rules light game of chickens, eldritch horror, and revenge for 2+ players, including one chicken master.
Oh, the Chicken Master's great. I want to be the Chicken Master. That's amazing. See, this is the kind of stuff that makes me like helps me overcome that anxiety, right? Where it's like that just sounds so much fun. Like I want to be the Chicken Master.
I,
Here, I'll link it.
that's a good one, Steve. I like that. That's almost as good as that one that I had found that, or maybe you found it. The turkey games, remember those?
Oh, Turkey Terror.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I don't remember which one of us found that either. But yeah, it's there's 6 types of chickens to choose from chicken to turkey to the enigmatic nugget.
Mm.
There are
Mhm.
6 eldritch traits. The powers gifted from the other. Which do you start with? How many do you end up with? Now they have modified it a little bit. It's somehow a 3d6 system. Unlike the original Honey Heist. But
hmm
I mean, it also includes a rollable table of puns.
I need that. I am not very good at puns. I am very good at non-puns, but
I'll pay $1.99 just for that table. Thank you very
yeah.
much.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, okay. And I'm pretty sure they did this on purpose because the full-size preview is both sides of the page with sample file hugely watermarked across it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose.
Trying to get to
Yeah.
the page.
Yep, there it is.
But like, I mean, Cthulhu chickens.
Yeah.
Who knew you needed this in your life? But I mean, come on.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, with that being said, we want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It has been an awesome time. As always, links to everything are in the show notes. You can find all of the games of the week, everything with that. Discord, Facebook, Twitter for the Me and Steve podcast. TikTok soon? Yeah.
Yes.
TikTok. Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah, TikTok.
Getting
Well-
with it with the teens.
It's existed. It's just not been populated very well because my ADHD doesn't work. Like I turn on the app
Mm-hmm.
and then hours
hours later.
disappear, and then I turn off the app.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I also have TikTok. I feel like it's the same scenario.
I say I'm going to make content, and then 2 hours disappear, and I have yet to make content. Like there's a video of me driving my tractor down the road with a song, with a George Jones song playing. That's a something. But anyways,
Chickens.
It's thematic. Anyways, TikTok soon, new content soon. But as always, links to everything are in the show notes. You can find us, anywhere podcasts are found. And with all that being said, we want to thank everyone for listening and remind you to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @andrpgs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. That.
I didn't say thank you. I should have been like, thank you for having me. That was
Oh,
really
you're
fun to
fine.
chat. Now you can take that audio and clip it in and put it there.
Clip it in, put it after the credits, whatever.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
you're right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Nope. We're saying the same thing.